Another video. What am I doing with my life?
Kitty, come on in. Come on in. Look at that beautiful kitty.
Kitty.
Come on.
Come here.
Anyways, hey, so what is up, everybody? We have got a little situation going on here. Today we have this little line selector. I've got it hooked up to 3 devices here. The reason why I have it hooked up to 3 devices is because we want to find out which one is more accurate for a capture. So I went ahead and already did the captures and stuff. I'm not going to sit through and do all that. But I have the amp set to the way the settings were whenever I captured them. So we're going to flip between both of them, or all 3 of them I should say, and find out which one is the most accurate. Let's find out. All right, so with my setup here, what I'm going to do is I have this one cable and it is basically hooked up to the effects return on this amp. So I'll be able to switch between that while having all the lines going, all this, so I don't have to switch out my guitar cable. And those will all be on at the same time. All I got to do is switch this effects cable over from the Quad Cortex to the Tonex. And I have to unplug it a little bit and to hear the actual amp. So cool thing about this is running into the return of this amp, we're going to get the same kind of sound that we need to mimic the same kind of power amp as well, because we're going to run through this power amp, and those are 2 EL84s, and like that last video, absolutely love this thing. It's got such a grit to the distortion, and I wanted to make sure that I captured that grit and just like rawness of that distortion in these devices. So let's find out which one wins, or if they're both good and they have a little flavor to them. It doesn't really matter which one wins. It's what your preference is, right? So let's go ahead and check them out. So first we'll start off with playing the actual amp. Okay, we're on the rhythm channel. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to slightly unhook that. So the way to know that we're on the actual amp is if you hear this. All that noise in the background. Because I don't have a noise gate, and I did that on purpose on this. I wanted to do that so you knew the difference between the amp and the actual capture device that we're using. So let's go ahead and hear the guitar or the actual amp. We got the feedback in the back. Here it is. All right, now let's check out the Tonex. So I'm going to push this in, which is going to engage the Tonex. Sounds pretty close, man. So let's go back into do the amp again. See? Okay, so there's a little bit of rawness to the amp, I guess. Let's see. Let's go back into the Tonex. Maybe not. The resonance is a lot more present here, so it's a lot thicker on the bottom end. So that's obviously the Tonex. There's no sound in the background. still really crunchy and grindy. That's one thing I love about this Laney. It's like that distortion is just like nasty. It's like gnarly. That's the best way I can describe it. And let's go back to the Tonex one more time. Or sorry, the amp. I feel like I like the Tonex capture a little bit better. That's interesting. All right, let's go over to the Quad Cortex. We're gonna go ahead and plug it in. We're already hooked up to be on the rhythm channel of this. Let's go ahead and engage the Quad Cortex. All right, there we go. That's interesting. It has like maybe a more rounder sound to it. It sounds like the mids are scooped out a little bit, just a tad, but not in a bad way. It's a different feel for sure. So let's go back to the amp. Back into the Quad Cortex. Okay, so let's now go back to the Tonex and just see what that sounds like. So I'm just going to unhook the Quad Cortex, go into the Tonex, so we can get a quick comparison. So the Tonex now sounds a lot more mid-forward than both of them. So that's interesting. So going back to the Quad Cortex. Okay, so with the Quad Cortex, let's go ahead and see if we can add a little more mids to it to get it closer to that actual sound. So we're gonna go here. Oops. You know what? There was a little bit of difference there. But let's add the mids and just see what it sounds like. Actually, let's go back to 0 because it was brought back a little bit and treble was up a little bit. So let's go back and do this. Okay, let's do the amp. Still a lot more mids in there. So let's actually put some mids into the Quad Cortex. Like the characteristic is definitely there, but it sounds like it's just really mid-scooped. All right, so there we go. There's the difference between them. It sounds like the Quad Cortex is more mid-scooped. The Tonex sounds like it has a little more mids than the Quad Cortex. So, Tonex. It's a lot more apparent sounding. Quad Cortex. Okay, back to the amp. Okay, Tonex. Okay, there we go. There's the difference. So Tonex definitely more mid-forward. Quad Cortex a little more scoop sounding and has a lot more resonance down in the bottom end. And then the Laney is like right in the middle of those two. All right, so I did do another channel, which is the lead channel down here. And we have it set up, not sure if you can see it from here, but I have the EQ set up this way, to a way that I like it. So let's go ahead and check it out on the actual Laney. So here's the lead channel. That is freaking awesome. Switching between those two, like the rhythm is really chunky and just kind of more flat. But I mean, I did mess with the EQ here, but man, that sounds great. All right, so let's go over to the Tonex. We're gonna flip over to the lead. So Studio Lead, all right. Now it's like I'm looking at the waves here, the wave file, and it sounds like, or it looks like, the amp is a little louder. So let's bring that down. That's the Tonex. Let's go back to the amp. All right, going back to the Tonex. Oh man, that is really close. Between these two, that is really, really close. Tell you what, I'm just gonna chug a little bit on the top string, and I'm just gonna pull the cable in and out so we can hear. That's what she said. Anyways, we're gonna pull it in and out, and we're gonna switch between the amp and the Tonex just to see if there's much of a difference. All right, so find the cable. So this is Tonex. Amp. Tonex. That's the Tonex. Amp. And Tonex. Which one do you think I'm on? You can't tell, can you? I'm on the Tonex. So I was switching back and forth, but I wanted to see if you could guess which one I was on at the very end. All right, so let's go ahead and over to the Quad Cortex and check that one out. All right. Let's go to the lead, and this is what the lead sounds like on the Quad Cortex. Okay, sounds like it's not as loud. Okay, now we're talking. So let's play that again. All right, let's go to the amp. So same deal. It sounds like the Quad Cortex is just more scoop sounding, and the amp has more mids to it. And the Tonex, I feel like, got more accurate to the actual amp sound than the Quad Cortex. So that's interesting. I mean, the Tonex is a really awesome piece of gear. It really is. And going back into the Quad Cortex. So I feel like the Quad Cortex cleans stuff up. Anytime I've done a capture, it just kind of cleans things up. I also have the noise gate going on here. There is no EQ, so the EQ that came with the new updates, that is turned off. So nothing affecting that. Let's actually go into and make sure that I didn't change anything. Okay, so it is flat. All right, so what I would want from this is a little more mids, to tell you the truth. Let's see what that sounds like. That's cool. So let's go to the amp. Okay, that sounds really close. Back to the Quad Cortex. It just doesn't sound as bright, so let's go ahead and turn that up. Some treble. And back into the amp. That's it right there. That sounds a lot like the amp. I had to add a little more mids, a little more treble, but that is right on, dude. So let's do the Quad Cortex one more time. And now we're going to do the Tonex. So it sounds like the Quad Cortex has a little more gain to it. Tonex, I know doing captures, haven't been able to, it's kind of a problem where you don't get the gain that you expect out of it. And even so for the Quad Cortex, for sure, but it seems more so for the Tonex. But, you know, having the gain down for this kind of amp, it just gives it that grit. So it's not a bad thing. God, that is freaking awesome. I will absolutely have the Quad Cortex captures up on the cloud, of course, DMD-QC. And I've been having some problems with my tone net, so I haven't been able to upload stuff quite yet. But when I do, I'll just go ahead and link my my Tonex username, so you guys can look that up whenever I get that up and going. Take him down, and that Laney, I love that thing. If you want some like grit, just that like, not like super like overdriven sound, but just has that grit to it, I'm telling you, you'll love this stuff. So yeah, okay, I think that's pretty much it. I just wanted to go through and show you guys the difference between these two, and both have their characteristics. Like I said, the Quad Cortex for this capture, the mids are definitely scooped on this. For the Tonex, it sounded like the mids were a little more pushed on it. For the lead, it sounded really close. And kind of the same, I would say there was more mids on the rhythm capture for the Tonex than the actual amp. And then for the Quad Cortex, it fell back and having scooped mids and having its own characteristics with the low end really punching through. So that's what I found. Tell me what you guys think. If you have any questions about this, I wanted to get this through because this bad boy is probably leaving me pretty soon. That's my motivation to make these videos, is if something sells, I gotta make the video. DMD out.